Sup everyone, welcome to another video, and today I want to take things back a little bit. Well, not all the way back, but let's go back around a year in Genshin Impact, and you'll see where I'm going with this, because today we have no chat, it's just me sitting here, and it's definitely a conversation that I think to myself all the time, especially as a content creator more so than just a player, because let's be honest, I'm both a player and a content creator. Whether I like it or not, I have some people who cares about what I say, and some people who cares a little too much about what I say. But the point of this video is really to hammer home some sort of criteria. Now, I don't want to use the S tier, A tier, B tier and stuff like that because people get really sensitive the second I say that. So let's just go with like amazing, very good, good, okay, bad, very bad, terrible. Let's just switch up the words here a little bit, and I'll add a little bit of filler in between because not everything in the game is either excellent or terrible. There's in between. There's okay, there's good, very good, bad, very bad. So what I want to get at is how come we started settling for just okay? And how did HoYoverse potentially cultivate this criteria of evaluating characters and having us just being okay with subpar characters? When I say subpar, I really mean characters that are below the average level of the baseline. I think there should be a certain baseline for evaluating whether or not a character is good or bad. I don't think, oh, it's okay, should be really utilized for more than like 40% of the character. Now, a character that I think is relatively fair to say is a baseline would be Ayato. I think Ayato is a character that nobody here would say he's broken, busted, extremely good, but nobody would really say he's terrible, bad, and unplayable. It's just the guy is the definition of a baseline. He is the character that everybody should be using to evaluate whether or not a character is performing good or bad. So let's just use the character we have on screen, Nahida. When it comes to evaluating Nahida, do you guys think she's better or worse than Ayato? When it comes to damage potential, she certainly is higher. She enables more comp, so she's more flexible. She has great vertical progression with her Constellations, and at the same time, she's very accessible to free-to-play players as well as whales. So it's just like, by all metrics, she should be a character that's better than Ayato. And then we have a character, let's say Cyno. What about Cyno? What do you guys think Cyno is compared to Ayato when it comes to synergies, potential, ceilings, flexibility, and free-to-play accessibility, whale accessibility, all these stuff, like how the kit flows, maybe that impacts how certain people evaluate characters. At the end of the day, I think Cyno falls just a little short of Ayato's performance. Yes, in his most ideal form, Cyno falls just a little short. And also, we can look at characters like the most recent Scaramouche. If you compare Scaramouche to Ayato, I think Scaramouche falls just a little short as well. But nobody is really gonna say they're bad characters, because by definition, bad means that they don't function or certain parts of their kits are broken. But HoYoverse is not a company that's gonna let something like that slide, because at the end of the day, damage can be easily manipulated by HoYoverse. They just need to set a minimum bar and a maximum bar and box the character within this range. For example, Hu Tao probably has a range from anywhere as low as, I don't know, 15,000, 20,000, all the way up to like 150,000, depending on what teams you play her in. But no matter how hard you try, one Hu Tao charge attack can never surpass a certain numerical value, including food buffs, including abyss buffs, whatever the hell you want to buff. There is a numerical maximum ceiling she can do her charge attack, and it's up to HoYoverse to figure out what that range is for every single character. And I can't help but notice that with certain characters, HoYoverse has been extremely reluctant to increase sometimes the ceiling or sometimes boost up the floor there a little bit. And this is where we get into the situation where, depending on how you play characters and what characters you pair them with, they may reach their full potential or they may be lacking in a few factors to reach that full potential. For example, Hu Tao has a great ceiling for a 5-star character even at C0, but if you don't give her access to a Hydro character, that ceiling is sealed off and then suddenly she feels subpar. Same with someone like Cyno. If you take away Dendro from Cyno, the man is quite literally worse than some 4 stars. But if you give him, side note, the tools he needs to succeed, suddenly he feels like a much better character. But when we evaluate all these characters side by side, when DPS characters have such large discrepancies of ceilings and floors, even with each other's, even with characters in the same category as them, it leaves a question, right? Why don't HoYoverse close that gap a little bit? I'm not saying tune every character to the same numerical ceiling and floor, but I feel like it should be closer, it should be more narrow. Now, of course, once we introduce Constellations, once we introduce their signature weapons at different refinements, these numbers fluctuate even more, and certain characters have breakpoints at certain constellations. Case in point, Raiden at C0 and Raiden at C2, quite a big difference when it comes to damage output. So, and not all characters get the same damage increase at C2. Some characters get a much higher increase at C6, and in unique scenarios like Zhao, the man literally becomes god if you fight more than one enemy at C6, but before C6 all the constellation leading up barely gives him any bonuses. So when compared to someone like Raiden at C2 and Zhao at C2, I know it's not a fair comparison being an Archon and everything, but my point is there are other characters at C2 that receive huge power boosts and there are characters that don't. And if you want to say, okay, then let's scale everything up to C6 R5, there's still a huge discrepancy, arguably even a bigger discrepancy for certain characters, because let's be honest, HoYoverse ain't perfect. They've designed characters in the past that they likely, if given the chance, will go back and redesign them into a more modernized character with a more modernized Genshin kit, and they likely will perform better, have different ceilings, have higher floors. That's my point, right? So when a character comes out and they don't function at the level of other old characters or recent characters, what is the reason for that, right? Now, taking the most obvious factor out of this, because we've already said this in the past, money. Let's just get money out of there, because let's be honest, characters nowadays are just as good as some of the ones in the past if you look at them through different lenses, at different power levels, with different constellations, with different investments in the characters. They somehow balance out with the older characters. It's just at base, they feel like they leave much to be desired. So we're going to leave that out of the picture, right? We're not going to talk about that, even though we just did, but we're not going to dwell on it. So one of the other reasons I feel like that characters nowadays just don't feel as impactful as the ones before, yet somehow we have to tread on in this copium belief that all characters are good, it's just we need to invest into them, figure out ways to make them work. One of the reasons is that there's just a finite amount of things you can do with a character and the way you design them. HoYoverse doesn't want to overlap characters in terms of design or playstyle, and even in sometimes certain synergies are locked off because HoYoverse doesn't want a character to function like another character, right? Vaporized characters, you only have a handful of them. Same goes for freeze characters, so on and so forth. It's just that HoYoverse is constantly juggling this game with reactions, with power floors and ceilings, and at the same time character uniqueness and all the other stuff combined to make sure that they have to profit, they have to make sure the character is unique, and it's tiring, man. I gotta say, I'm not like making excuses for them. I'm just saying, like, if they put so many criterias on designing characters and what constitute as an acceptable passable character for them while having to continuously make millions of dollars from each character, yeah, like, you're not going to have that many options to create good characters. Now, a lot of people would say, well, just crank the ceilings up a little bit, right? Like, look at what they did with characters like Raiden Shogun, look at what they did with characters like Ito, characters that when they were first introduced to us, nobody really said they were bad. It was just like, okay, cool, another great character. In some cases, people complained that, oh, why is this character so much better than his predecessors, such as Ito and Zhao? There were plenty of Zhao mains who were not happy when Ito came out, but at the end of the day, I think with how HoYoverse has designed the game with no competition, no leaderboards, it gives them the leeway to release characters in states that some would argue are unfinished, not unpolished, but just unfinished, because sometimes when a character comes out, they don't even work until another character, maybe 1 or 2 patches down the line, comes out. Synergistically, the character is not complete because they don't have the key piece to unlock their full potential. And Hoyoverse can get away with it because there's no PvP, there's no competition. It's mostly a single player game. So it's like, who really cares? And that's why we've gotten so complacent, right? It's okay, the character's fine, it does damage, somehow, it's fine. Like, what is there to complain about? And also, with the sheer number of characters Hoyoverse pumps out, it's like 1 5-star per patch consistently, and sometimes accompanied by 4 stars. So just keep pumping out these characters patch after patch, especially with the last couple patches, which with only like a month in between them. It's just like we're getting bombarded with these characters so fast to the point where people can't even fully realize a character's potential, because you have about a month to fully test every single iteration, every single possibility, test them with all the weapons and free-to-plays and all that stuff. Like, I mean, sure, content creators can do it, but most people can't. And then you move on to the next patch, and sometimes next patch you introduce characters that synergize with old characters, but it's not gonna get enough likes and clicks for people to make videos about every single option with every single pairing. So then people just tread along. We just, okay, just move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Everybody gets into this rhythm where it's just like, I guess it's fine. The character works, can do damage, and Hoyoverse has set the bar for Abyss so damn low that there's not a single 5-star character, if they're damage oriented, that comes out that can't clear it. Like, everybody can clear it, all 5 stars. DPS can clear the Abyss. If you build them right, the ceiling is there. It's just sometimes it requires a little more juice to get the engine spinning, to get the wheels rolling, if you know what I mean. Some characters come effortlessly. Some characters, you need to put in some elbow grease to make sure they're up and running. But at the end of the day, they all work. And that's the thing that nobody can harp on Hoyoverse for. You can say like, oh my god, this character is so bad compared to this other character, but at the end of the day, they all work, right? And that's the thing everybody says. Everybody just goes to this. Like, whenever the conversation reaches a standstill, people always go to this one. They're like, yeah, but they can clear the Abyss, so what's the problem? Nobody ever said there's a problem, right? Nobody ever said these characters are terrible, or they are trash, or they don't work. We are saying that comparatively, characters have gotten more and more difficult to make work. And of course, back in the old days, it was very easy. The traditional reactions, vaporize, melt, deals damage, electro charge. People were kind of iffy about that, but like somewhat deals damage, a little more AoE, some bit of CC. What's not to like about a superconduct, a debuff, swirl, iridescence. That's it. That's pretty much what people played Sword for, iridescence. Geo, we don't talk about Geo, okay? That was it. It was simple. It was straightforward. And fast forward to nowadays, all of these old stuff has been done. Like, they've all been done and dusted, even reused in many characters. Hoyoverse doesn't feel comfortable doing another vaporized character because it's boring. People have seen it, and people who have already played old vaporized characters, you make a new one, they're gonna compare, right? And Hoyoverse like, oh man, what do we do? Do we make them do the exact same thing, same ceiling, same floor? What's going? They already tried with Yoimiya. They tried lowering the ceiling, especially at C0, and then keeping the floor the same, and then also adding unique playstyle. Oh, it's a bow character that vaporizes through normal attacks instead of charge attacks. Wow, what a difference. And then they somehow messed up the burst skill with the synergies between her supposedly ideal artifacts, and look at what happened, right? And since then, they haven't really went back to vaporize. It's like, you can see how difficult it is for them to kind of manufacture a character that fits all their criteria. It's incredibly difficult, even for Hoyoverse, who is a multi-billion-dollar company at this point with, I don't know, hundreds of staffs, I would imagine. It's difficult. So going forward, I don't know what to expect. I'm going to continue giving inputs to characters through my personal experience. But hey, like, honestly, at this point, it's just like you guys say, what's the point? Why even bother? Because everything can clear the Abyss, right? It's just how you're going to build them to do it. It's something to think about. And I think you guys should really contribute more in the comments when it comes to certain characters that you just feel like, well, maybe you could use a little bit of tightening here, of uplifting there, to make sure that they rise to the level that Hoyoverse is known for, especially when it comes to Liyue, patch 1.0, patch 2.0 characters. But I really think the second half of patch 2.0 is when things kind of took a nosedive. So yeah, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's a very weird video. It's just kind of throwing things out there and seeing what sticks and what people say. So until next time, urge y'all to stay safe. Peace, peace.